So let's start with the virtualization. And in the quiz, I asked, and I also explained a little bit that as well. That let's suppose we have one device. That organization, in early days, what used to happen in old days, we have multiple servers which is running multiple services. Like this is domain controller. This is just like FTP server. We were talking about the storage. Then this is like SQL server. You can notice how much money your owner is gonna invest on these devices. Then behind the scene, there is infrastructure as well, and there are so many things. So the virtualization then jumped on and gave us, solution about that. So now what we do, we have the same fashion, we have single device. And in the same device, we will deploy kind of software that will do the image or virtualization for the rest of the servers that I mentioned previously. So you can deploy all your these services on the same box. So we are not only saving the money, but usually these devices are very high-end devices. Like they have a very powerful CPU process, they have a very good RAM and the storage. Okay, so running only one service is like good for nothing. So why not we make the virtualization and deploy the rest of the services on the same box? Okay, so we are saving the money as well as we are using the resources of this single device as well. So as for from the diagram, as you can see, this is how it looks like. We have one host operating system. Of course, we need one host operating system that will run hypervisor. And on top of that, we will have operating system 1, operating system 3, 2, 4, which will be running multiple services like FTP service. This is running like, let's say, kind of NAT services. This is running like DSCP services and like SQL and so on and on. Okay. So from the definition, it is written in computing virtualization is the act of creating virtual version of something, including virtual computer, hardware, platform, storage devices, computer network resources. Using one physical device, install multiple operating system as a parallel. So these are the multiple as a parallel running. If you can run 5 operating systems in one computer, you are going to save money that you would spend on the purchase on the other physical resources. So you can spend that amount to purchasing other devices as well. And the examples of hypervisors, as we know, VMware. Then we have VirtualBox. Then VMware, that is belong to the same, but with ESXi version. And for the Microsoft specifically is Hyper-V. Okay, any question, or if Danish also can add something on it?
Yeah, so I think I will take over and just give you some examples of this because we were on that. When we talk about a hypervisor, we already talked about the UCS part of it, right? That was what we were covering. And then how do we really work on the management piece? So Kamran just mentioned, we will not just go for a one small device or maybe a servers that are that are kind of like you will not be going for a lot of different physical devices. So that's why we already cleared the concept of UCS, and you guys know that. So if I buy something big like this, all I gotta do is to buy more servers from eBay, and all I gotta, not eBay, I mean from Cisco. eBay is me, okay? Somebody like, what? You get okay. So this from like any professional people will just contact the vendor. You always have vendors work with you, like Cisco vendors and different type of vendors. So I bought this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say I need more. I'm running out of space, or I need more RAM or things like that. I mean, I'm gonna buy another one, right? So now you must be wondering, what kind of solutions can we put on this? Now, of course, this is where your company will be doing a lot of homework, whether they want to use a hypervisor solution on a hardware level, or they want to go for like, type 2 type of solutions, like, Hyper-V type of, like you put a Windows Server 2019 and then you put Hyper-V on it, which is rare, but a lot of people use VMware. That's why we want to go VMware, because that's is more well known in this area. So now, if you talk about this, you must be thinking then when we install everything on this. So of course, you either want to do it on a network level, USB level, whatever you choose, you will install that. We're not getting into UCS learning. Let's say I configure this. I went in there, I put the ESXi on it. Then what can I do? How can I access ESXi on this server? You see the power of UCS is that I'm already in this system. All I got to do is right click and what? I can get into the KVM of that ESXi, right? So if I click on the KVM, what happens? I'm going to be connected to this ESXi directly. So let's just try that and see what happens. So there you go. That's an IP address. And I'm sure at this point, you guys have seen some help desk videos from my end. And I think you guys, at this point, when you were learning help desk, I think your level of learning stopped over here. We never went into vCenters or anything like that, right?
I think so, yeah.
So most of you know at this level information where you put an ESXi and you get into that IP address and then you put virtual machines on it. And I do remember, Haifa, for your training, you have installed virtual machines on ESXi. You haven't done anything on vCenter, right?
Correct.
So now imagine if I had 6 of these ESXi's running, all of them have what? Single IP addresses. Not a good way to manage all of these 6 machines, right? 6 servers, right? So what's the solution to manage all of these 6 hardware level ESXi's right now? ESXi's are installed on this. I can get to it by IP address, but I think we're still cleared it before. What can I do over here? What can I run?
vCenter.
vCenter. So for people knowledge, we're talking about vCenter because that's a VMware solution. It could be any other solutions, but you need a single management, single point where you can access all these server from single address. Okay. So for that to happen, you need to learn what? This is a learning tip right here. What do you need to learn?
To access vCenter?
Yes, to learn about vCenter, ESXi, what do you need to learn?
Virtualization.
And virtualization of VMware, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so now for our members, specifically you guys, and anyone in future, we also have a full ESXi vCenter labs in your practice lab. I just jumped into the vCenter right now.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you knew this. We do have that, okay? So all I had to do is to turn on the vCenter lab, and now I am actually in the vCenter. So just assume we are connected to what? That UCS through this single IP address after when I configured my VMware, after I learned this skill. I know what I'm talking about now. I'm talking about vCenter. I connected my vCenter to those ESXi's. And now where can I find those ESXi's here? What do we call ESXi's in terms of connections to vCenters or anything like that? What are these things? What are these servers called?
Storage? Hosts and clusters?
Host, yes. It's actually in most of these places, they're going to call it hosts, okay?
Okay.
So if you look at it, this is our UCS right here. This right here, UCS is in London. And in London, how many hosts do we have? One. So if we go back to our example, we're only connected to this one host right here. If I had configured all of these 6, then what would I see here? How many hosts would I see over here? 6 hosts,
6.
right? Exactly. So now from one single point, I can access all of these hosts. And then this is where the beauty of virtualization kicks in, because then virtualization takes over. Let's say if this machine was to go down, or let's say this host went down, what can happen to this VM?
Could you repeat the question in English, please?
If this host went down, let's say this physical server
Mhm.
here, this one went down, and you have configured the virtualization the way people would configure, the power of virtualization play a big role over here. Let's say this physical server, number 1, went down. This one
Mhm.
went
You
down.
just you can replace it, and let's say you can't fix it. You can replace it and then just
But I'm sleeping.
link it to.
I'm sleeping right now. This is 3 a.m. This went down. What will happen to this VM?
It will still run
How?
because it's only.
If I have 6 hosts right here, assume we have 6 hosts right here. In this,
Oh, then redundancy, like one of the other 5 are going to kick in or take its place.
so if you now, I'm doing a learning tip right here. If I would have configured my VMware or any virtualization, these are like the features that I'm talking about. Virtualization. We're talking about virtualization over here, right?
Mhm.
So I'm explaining the power of virtualization over here. If that was to go down, then what will happen? This VM is going to move to the servers that are actually running out from here. It's going to just move the management piece to those servers, because the storage is running from somewhere else. So we don't care about this server going down right now at this point, because the storage of this is not even here, right? It's the storage that we talked about before, right?
Mhm.
So these other servers are managing these VMs. So I don't care about, because this is the big thing right here. If it was to run from this server locally, if this was to go down, then we're done right here. Right?
Mhm.
But here, because the storage is somewhere else, then because of my knowledge of VMware, I have set it up the way if my host A go down, and any virtual machines in host A automatically move it to the second one. And all I have to do is wake up in the morning and like, oh, we got a hardware down. Let me fix it. And I fixed it. I came back. I turned it on again. Everything back to that server. Everything good to go. You see how easy it is these days?
Mhm.
If it was a physical devices, trust me, you would not want to become a network engineer anymore. Because you had to go there and you have to configure everything. You have to recover that hardware. You have to recover the hard drives, everything. You have to recover it manually. Here, virtualization made our job extremely easy. And on top of this now, we are connecting to cloud. So if this was to go down, the whole servers were to go down, then some companies have now backups in the cloud. You could bring everything down from the cloud. So I'm just kind of moving you guys to what we are using currently these days. So this is the vCenter right here. Now, again, a tip for you. If you guys are good at basics, I want you to go to the VMware. I want you to go to these labs. I want you to learn what is a vCenter. I want you to learn about ESXi's. I want you to learn about these features, what I'm talking about. If one goes down, how can this move? I want to challenge you, or to leave you this homework to you guys. What am I talking about over here? I want you to find out these features. So when a VM goes down, how does it even move to a second server? I want you to do that homework. Then you will understand what I'm talking about, okay?
Got it.
So far, virtualization. Now you have seen something visually from all the way from UCS to all the way to what's running in the UCS, from all the way to what's managing UCS is like a product, a VMware. Is everything clear so far?
Yes.
What do you guys think?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I understand UCS. I understand this SAN.
Huh?
Now I want to know where is vCenter? Is it because I know that ESS
Good
has.
question. So vCenter could be a VM in any of these ESXis.
Okay.
It's
So,
just the management piece.
so
to connect
once, sorry.
Yeah.
So once ever gonna manage all the rest? Is that what you say?
So that VM, it could be on an ESXi, like let's say A. And if this goes down, I could put the VM on B and I have vCenter running again.
Okay, because we only use an IP address, right?
Yeah, so for
Okay.
vCenter to be configured, now this is a VMware knowledge. For vCenter to be configured, you need to have a domain controller running, you have to have a DNS running, because then you need to control everything from that. So let's say if your UCS is down and you have some connectivity issues, then of course your domain controllers are down too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then of course your vCenter will work or not. It won't work.
No.
Then what happened in this scenario when you can't access a vCenter? Let's say I want to get into this vCenter, this one. I want to get into that, but that you see, it has a fully qualified domain name, but my domain controller is down. How can I then get back to my vCenter?
You have to create another domain? No.
No. So if my domain
It's
controller
down.
is down, which is also a VM in one of these ESXis, it's down right now, and my vCenter is dependent on that domain controller, but I cannot get to the vCenter now. What is my other solution? Where would I go? Take yourself back, a step back from this. Where is my hardware running? How can I get to the ESXis now?
To the you go to the physical hardware.
Oh, good job right there. So you have to go where? The UCS. And where is the ESXi running? Directly on top of this server, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do? We KVM into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I find the IP address. Then what do? I can go to the web browser and directly type the
Type in the IP
address of the ESXi. So in that ESXi, what is running? The domain controller. So I will just restart the domain controller. If the vCenter is having an issue, I'll just restart the vCenter.
Okay.
And then I'm back.
Got it.
That actually happened recently to one of the clients that I was working on. They lost the connectivity on UCS, and somehow when you lost the connectivity to UCS, and maybe it has a storage issue, a storage could not connect. So what happened? Every single thing is connected to storage over here. So this is why I talked, Haifa, if you remember, I asked you a question. If your storage is totally down, none of these VMs are going to work, right?
Correct.
So if none of your VMs are going to work, then what's happened? Your domain controllers are down too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So when your domain controller is down, then can you use vCenter?
No.
No. So when everything like that is down, where do you go back? You go back to the hardware level KVM type of solutions. This is your hardware then. Then you find it. If at this level everything is working fine, you get into a direct IP address of this ESXi. So if I want to get into this ESXi now, what do I need?
The IP address.
If I want to get into this ESXi, what do I need?
The IP?
The IP. I'm trying to find that, but maybe you might not have it. It just says localhost here. Network. Anyways, well, that's something VMware. We don't want to go into that. But you're going to need an IP address of this. So I can go back to my what? To my KVM UCS and find that IP address. Just like this. Let's say I don't have access to this right now. Either you remembered it, or either you need to find it. And you physically, if you need to find it, you need to go to the product, whatever you're using, and KVM into it and find the IP address. Type the IP address into the browser and turn on what devices you're having issues, because now you have a domain controller issues. We're moving above virtualization, but still, I wasn't virtualization. You need to understand all these different skills to get into ESXis. This is what we're talking about, right?
Question. I don't know if
so
this.
far everything clear. Yes.
I don't know if this happens, but what if both the UCS is down and your domain controller?
If UCS is down, totally down, you mean like you cannot get access to it?
Yeah, you can't get access to either of them.
Is that your question?
Yeah, you can't hear me, Donna?
Okay, so if your UCS is totally down, this means your management is down, right? So if it's totally down, so what's down? Let's say the whole this is down. Like I'm just talking about no lights here, no lights here, nothing. The whole thing is down. Power failure over here. This is the failure. This is where it says fail.
Then you would troubleshoot the hardware like aspect. Oh, or your
Yes, there's no other way.
Okay.
Right? You have to
Okay.
go into the business physically, check the power. So sometimes it could be shut down or it could have some kind of issue. So you will unplug the 4 cable that is connected to the UCS power, plug it back in, everything should come back up.
Okay, makes sense.
And this will come up, this will come up, this will come up. Your UCS is up. Then you will need to find out if your ESXIs are working fine. Then you need to find out if your virtual machines are actually fine, because virtual machines could be shut down in an improper way and everything will be like blue screen of death and everything like that. You have to go inside the ESXIs and manually start everything.
Okay.
If your vCenter is down, if your vCenter is up and everything, let's say your domain controllers are up and running, then you don't need to go to each and every ESXi. You need to go do a vCenter and just here. Here, you just need to go here and then get into a VMs just directly from these ESXi's. Like for example, what I am on right now, right? So I can come over here and I can just say, okay, this is the London, this is the host. And then in host, we have virtual machines and I can restart all these machines again one by one. So hopefully the virtualization, at this point, knowledge is okay. In future, I want you guys to do these labs so then you become more of like a person to go to the interview and say, I know about vCenter, I know about vMotion, I know about these different features that it comes with. I know about virtualization as an administrator level, not a help desk level, okay?